Hello everybody, my name is Pete. Would like to welcome you to the first episode of Cooking with Beer. Today my co-chef is Rob. Rob is my golf buddy, next door neighbor and good friend, so it's great to have you in the kitchen, Rob.
Oh, it's great to be here.
I'd like to thank the folks at Northshire Brewery who came up with the idea of partnering with GNAT, and would also like to thank the entire team at GNAT for being very accommodative for this concept that we have. Special thanks to Hoss and Tammy and the whole crew. So today we're going to make my version of chili. It's never had a name, so I'm going to name it It's Not Texas Chili, because if you know what chili is down in Texas, it's basically a meat sauce. There's no beans or anything like that in Texas chili. So what we're going to be making today is going to be completely different than what you'd normally see. So we're going to get started here. Rob, we're going to get you, there's some crushed tomatoes here, if you can get going with that. And while you do that, you remember a couple of years ago there was that controversy about pink slime?
Yeah,
So
I do.
I went down to Henry's Market in Bennington yesterday and spoke with Gene. And Gene basically told me that what pink slime is, it's an ammoniated binder agent that is commonly used in hamburger.
Okay.
And that sounds pretty nasty to me if you think about it, an ammonia-based binder. So Gene mentioned to me that a lot of local butchers use whole muscle meat when they're making their ground beef. So in the case of Henry's down in Bennington, there's absolutely no pink slime. It's made all from muscle meat, and you might not be able to differentiate it in this recipe that we're making today, but if you're making hamburgers, meatballs, or meatloaf, that's when it will really,
Now I noticed you put that on top of some onions that you had been sauteing.
Right?
What did you start that off with?
Well, basically I had a little bit of a canola oil and a white onion, and when I cook with onions, you can either put them in raw and cook it with the process, but what I like to do is I like to cook my onions a little bit before I start adding stuff to it. So if you can get crushing those tomatoes there, Rob.
What would you like me to crush these with?
Crush them with your hands, please.
My hand?
Yes. Yes, that's why we washed our hands. So your hands are impeccably clean, just like mine, so you got nothing to worry about. Now, if you haven't crushed tomatoes by hand before, they're going to get awful splashy. So let me take this for you. Get in there, start crushing them.
Crush them by hand.
Crush them by hand. You can do it there, brother. So while that's going on, we're going to add a little bit of sea salt.
This reminds me of a fraternity prank.
Yeah, a little bit of sea salt to the meat. And we're going to add just a little bit of chili powder to the meat as well. That's going to give that just a little bit of flavor right before we get it into our base of our chili. So this is cooking up really nice. It's almost ready. In chili recipes, you can add your meat raw into the pot. There's nothing wrong with that. The reason I like to brown my meat is primarily because I'll cook off a little excess fat. So it will be a little bit leaner. Obviously, if you cooked it raw in the pot, some of that rendered fat would just be right in the pot there. So how you making out there, big guy, with those?
Good. I'm glad you're so concerned about the fat content and making this a healthier
Well, this will be a very healthy recipe. So
because I eat healthy, you know.
You eat
just in large quantities.
Yes, yes. So that's good. How you making out? We're almost ready for that.
Does this look good to you?
Yeah.
I've never crushed tomatoes by hand.
Let's see what you got. Let's see what you got.
I feel like a kid playing in the mud.
Well, looks pretty good. So
All
we're
right.
going to add this right to the pot here, and this will serve as the base of our chili. We've got another container that we've already chopped by hand, so we'll add that in there as well. So this is where it really starts to get fun, because this is where we're going to start to build the base of the chili. So the first thing that we're going to do is add some beef stock, and this is just regular store-bought beef stock. So you can pour that right in there.
Now, if you don't find a beef stock, can you use a bouillon cube and some water?
You could, but the bouillon is much saltier,
yes.
than the beef stock.
Yeah.
And the beef broth that you get in the store is very salty to begin with.
Yeah.
So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add our beer. And here we've got a Batten Ale from Northshire Brewery. It's a classic dark English ale, which I think is going to go really well with this. Now, Jacques Pupin, who's one of my favorite TV chefs, always said if you're going to be cooking with any type of alcohol, make sure it's good enough to drink. Cheers, bro.
Cheers. I don't think that will work well in the chili. I think you need to pour the rest out in my glass here, and we'll use another one.
This is going to go excellent. This has
will.
got a nice
Very
hoppy
good.
bite. We're going to use about a half a bottle. So this is a 22-ounce pounder. So we're going to be using approximately 12 ounces of beer. You can use any kind of beer that you'd like, but the darker the beer, the better.
Now, darker beer doesn't always mean hoppier.
That's correct.
But do you think the IPAs that are more hoppier than your standard beer are better, or just in terms of the color that you're looking for?
You know, in a perfect world, I would use, like a dark amber ale.
Okay.
I would stay away from the extra hoppiness because that could affect the flavor profile a little bit.
Okay.
So here we've got the base going here. What we're going to do is we're going to start adding stuff. So here's our chili powder.
How much do you add in there?
I'm going to add, and the base of the chili is going to be a combination of chili and cumin. It's going to be 2 parts chili to 1 part cumin, and we're going to be doing a double dump, which means we're going to be doing it once now, and then once the final assembly is done, right before we turn it down for about an hour to simmer, we're going to be doing the other dump. So we're going to put in about 1.5 tablespoons of chili powder. Looks about right. And then on top of that, like I said, the 2 to 1, here's the 1, this is cumin. And we'll add about 3/4 tablespoon there.
Well, your math
That
is right.
looks about good. So we're going to get that going. And as you can see, Rob, this
Yeah.
is really starting to flavor the chili.
Yeah. And our ground beef is almost, it's getting there.
Now, a couple other things I'm going to add right here is turmeric. I venture to guess not too many people add turmeric to their chilies.
Now, what about the flavor of it?
The flavor is pretty bland.
Okay.
It's not something like the chili powder or the cumin, which is very distinctive. If you actually smell the turmeric, you can get, it's almost kind of like a curry, almost like a curry flavor.
A mild curry.
Right, right. So we've got that going. We're going to add some crushed red pepper. Now this will really determine the heat level of your chili. If you add crushed red pepper to a slice of pizza, for instance, and then you eat it, you'll get an intense, really red pepper taste. And if you ever had that red pepper flake stuck on your tongue before, it really gets you. But when you cook with red pepper, over time, that's really going to permeate the whole dish.
Yes.
So it's not going to be as in your face, but it will have that back of the palate spice. So given the fact that when I cook for my wife and daughter, so I can't make things too hot. So I'm going to do 2 shakes in here. 1, 2. And that will add enough spice to the dish where you'll know it's a spicy.
Now, about how big is this pot that you're cooking in right now? Do you know how many quarts? Or you're like me, I never know what size quart pan I'm using. I just use what seems like the right size. And
I'm going
always
to guess
bigger is
that's a
better.
5-quart.
Okay. And the 2 cans that you put in there of the tomatoes, those are the larger size that you usually buy.
28-ounce cans.
Yeah.
2 28-ounce cans.
Okay.
So we're looking pretty good. We want to add a little bit of salt. I don't add a whole lot of salt to my cooking, and for the longest time I cooked without salt. And
Wow.
I realized that I was missing something because salt really can serve as a conduit to bring a lot of different flavors together. So we're looking pretty good here, Rob. What I want you to do is sort of tilt this up so you get the fat going down one side and then scoop it out with the rest
the
here.
other side. Okay.
Be safe there. Hold on. Oh, violation of protocol. Put this.
Okay.
We got to be safe here. All right, so we're looking good. I'm going to add a whole bunch of black pepper in here.
You know, I usually don't use a pot holder when I cook.
Well, we're not at home here.
Okay.
All right, so that's looking good. I really like the way that that's looking. That's probably
How much meat did you put into this?
Gene was kind enough to give me 2 pounds. Gene from Henry's Market was kind enough to give me 2 pounds of meat. And so we've got about 1 3/4 pound here today because I got up in the middle of the night and made myself a cheeseburger last night. It was pretty darn good.
And you didn't call me up to come over, huh?
Yeah, it was 3 in the morning.
Well, I'm glad you didn't call me.
Yep. So we are looking really, really good. While you do that,
All right.
I'm going to add some bay leaves. I'm going to add about 3 bay leaves in here.
Now, I saw a comedian once talk about bay leaves. He goes, you know, he said, I made a soup and I forgot to put the bay leaves in, and it didn't taste any different. So, what does the bay leaf do to it?
Well, again, this gives it a nice herbal flavor. And because
Does smell good.
It does smell good. And one of the things that we will be adding here shortly, all right, we are looking good. One of the things that we'll be adding here shortly is one of my secret ingredients in this dish.
All right.
Now, Rob, if you can just show the camera how much fat we've retained in this pan.
Look at that.
And that's the reason why I wanted to brown the meat before I put it in here, because if you didn't, all that fat would be in there. Now, let me take the pot holder from you. You can turn off that heat there, please. I'll take this away. Now, we are going to add some of the, now this right here, I should mention, this is pretty much Texas chili right here.
Okay. Yeah, I've been in Texas.
This is pretty much Texas chili. You let this cook down for an hour.
They call it chili con carne.
Yep.
And you're right, it is more of a meat gravy.
So here's where it's not Texas chili really gets its name. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to add about a half a bunch of celery. Now, Rob, what I want you to do is grab a celery leaf and a little chunk of celery, and I want you to eat the chunk of celery first and then eat the leaf later. So celery is notorious for being kind of a bland vegetable.
Yep.
Now, eat the leaf and tell me if you can tell a difference. The leaf, I find, has much more flavor than the actual stalk.
But I've always found it to be a little bit bitter.
Yep. So again, this is one element of it's not Texas chili. Here is the other. It's very common, particularly in the Northeast, to use beans with your chili.
Yep.
Oftentimes you're using a kidney bean, sometimes you're using a black bean.
Black beans
What I
usually,
like to do here is I like to use chickpeas, which is a bean, but it's a very robust bean. And you can cook this down for pretty much all day, and you won't harm the integrity of the chickpea. Sometimes when you're using like the white beans or the black beans, you cook them down a little bit, they'll start to get mushy and break apart.
You can almost make a hummus out of it.
Oh, absolutely.
Chickpea.
So this is 3 cans of chickpeas that I'm adding there. I'll put this away. And we'll get this going here.
I'm ready to eat this right now. This looks good.
Now, here's one of the things that we're going to do. Another secret ingredient that I have, if you just excuse me.
Yep.
I'm going to add a jar of green salsa into my chili. And
green salsa.
Yep. Now, I'm going to pour this in here, but I want you to read what the ingredients are here, Rob.
Okay. Jalapeno peppers, water.
Jalapeno, good in chili.
Tomatillos.
Tomatillos,
Yep.
that will go good in chili.
Water, onion, salt, dried garlic, cilantro.
All that stuff individually would go good in chili.
Spice and then natural flavors.
Yep. So I pretty much learned how to cook from my mother. I remember when we were young, we used to watch The Galloping Gourmet. Remember that guy?
Oh yeah.
That's what really tickled my fancy when I was a young kid and really got me interested in cooking. But my mother was a great cook, and she hardly ever used a recipe book.
Right.
She would be like, this is what I want to make. This is how I know I want to make it. So she would improvise quite a bit. So a couple of years ago, I was making a pot of chili. I was looking for some beans in the cabinet. I came across this jar of green salsa. I'm like, I've had this jar for about a year, and I can't think of a way to use it. So
how close was it to its expiration date?
It was close. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to throw this in the chili and see what happens. And I was absolutely shocked at how well it blends all the flavors together.
Well, this expired in the Reagan administration. Is that still good?
So we're almost done. What I'm going to do now is add a couple of shakes of hot sauce. In this case, I'm going to use, Frank's Red Hot. I like this a little bit better than Tabasco. Tabasco is a little bit too in your face, a little bit too vinegary. So again, usually I cook for my family, so I'm not going to add a whole lot here, maybe 2 or 3 shakes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so we're good there. The other thing that I add into my chili recipe is mustard, but I have to do this behind the back because the wife and kid don't like mustard. They probably don't even know I put it in the chili, but I'm just going to put like a quick squirt right in there. Not a whole lot, maybe a teaspoon or so. And we're going to mix this all together. Now, what we want to look for here, Rob, is we want to look to see how blended
Yeah, look at that.
our chili is. So what we want to be able to see is we want to be able to see the black pepper. We want to be able to see some of the chili. You're not going to see the cumin or the turmeric because that's very light and that blends in well. So I think we're looking pretty good right here. I can't think of anything else that we want to add. We are going to do the double dump. And I mentioned earlier
I was
that
going to ask you.
we're going to do the double dump. So now we're going to add about half as much as we put in initially. So this is going to be,
3/4 of a teaspoon?
yeah, maybe a
tablespoon?
little less. Maybe a half a tablespoon here.
Okay.
That looks good. And again, 2 to 1 with the cumin. And that looks good. We will give this one stir.
And we can serve this right up.
Yeah, this needs to cook down a little bit. I mean, everything is cooked in here. You can eat this right now if you wanted to. The celery needs to stew a little bit. The flavors need to blend together. And what you'll see, I would recommend cooking this without the lid on. And what you'll see in about an hour's time or so is that the volume level of the pot's going to decrease about a ½ inch.
Okay.
Because you're going to see some evaporation.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't want to have this on a rapid boil. But you do want to start to see that bubbling and steam coming from the surface. That'll indicate that we are looking pretty good, and I think we're close to being where we want to be. So bear with us. This is going to take a little bit of time, approximately an hour, and we will be right back at you.
Do we really have to wait an hour?
Yes.
Smells real good. I can't have just a little taste?
No. You got a little bit of beer left there, Rob. That can keep you busy.
Well, but I'm drooling all over my arm.
That's all right. As long as it's your arm and nobody else's.
Oh.
Why don't you have some beer, Rob?
All right, I'll have a little beer.
While we wait for this dish to finish, I'd just like to thank everybody for joining us on the first episode of Cooking with Beer. Again, would like to thank our sponsors, Northshire Brewery, and the team at GNAT. If you have a recipe that you would like to share with us, feel free to contact us at battenkillale@gmail.com. Hope you join us next time. Thank you very much.